Welcome to 4C Radio. We are broadcasting from the Christ University Central Campus, Bangalore. 4C Radio is brought to you by the Department of Media Studies, Christ University. For all who are looking for a platform that focuses on communities, commons, climate and communication, this is the place to be. What's more, this station is run by a diverse community of students and dedicated faculty members. Tune in to experience hard-hitting interviews, fact checks and myth-busting, on-ground stories, campus news, and all the creative expressions of our community. As practitioners, students, and consumers of journalism and media, it is crucial that we also analyze what gets covered and how. We also need to be alert to what falls within the gaps or cracks and why. So we will present media analysis on a report or an issue in a recurring segment so that we remain alert to the shifts in narratives. Today, we have an inspiring story from the Times of India about not one or two, but 3,000 millet farmers of Karnataka. Student journalist Shinjini speaks with Dr Padmakumar, Director of Center for Peace Praxis, about the story, issues surrounding millet farming and the media's role in conserving organic farming.
Welcome to 4C Radio. In this episode, we are in conversation with Dr Padmakumar MM, Director of the Center for Peace Praxis here at Christ University. Today, we are discussing a recent article in Times of India about how 3,000 farmers benefited from millet cultivation. In Karnataka's drought-hit Dharwad and Haveri districts, around 3,000 farmers transformed over 2,000 acres of barren land by switching to millet cultivation. Supported by local NGOs, they adopted 6 climate-resilient millet varieties along with traditional pulses and greens, reducing water usage and input costs. Their collective efforts led to the formation of the Devdanya Farmer-Producer Company, providing seeds, training, and market access, showcasing a successful model of sustainable farming rooted in biodiversity and resilience. So, sir, my first question is that what did you think of this story?
The story is adding a lot of value from an ecocentric perspective. One, millets are a climate resilient crop, and apart from that, they are loaded with a lot of micronutrients, rich in calcium, and they also consume very little water. So plenty of reasons why we need to shift from more of a rice and wheat heavy consumption to millet consumption. And millet consumption will not go up until there is millet production that is supported, right? So such stories go a long way in promoting millets. It also raises the millet consciousness. And so I would strongly recommend such stories to all my students to read, and thereby promote that millet consciousness. And the good things about the story is that they're bringing a lot of data, and they're also tracking change, how a drought hit area is able to revive itself by opting for millets, and also how this can be amplified. So from a small area, how it can be scaled up to other areas and all that. And they're also enabling collaborations to happen between people who are into the millet production context. So a lot of wonderful things that are being done in this story.
What do you think could be a reason why the entire 50-acre area that is being talked about in this article went barren? What could be the possible ways to bring back the vitality of the soil?
Let's first remember that the Indian farmer is more than 4,000 years old. When I'm talking about the Indian farmer, the farming as a kind of a practice in India is more than 4,000 years old. It's not something that just popped up in the past decade or past few centuries. This has been going for a very long time, and they have mastered an understanding about what are the ways in which they'll have to deal with extreme weathers. Let's say when there is heavy rain, when there is a prolonged drought season, right? So they have figured out these things and accordingly worked out the choice of plantations. For instance, millets had a huge role to play in the Indian agriculture scenario, say in states like Rajasthan to Karnataka to Gujarat and Tamil Nadu for that matter. And in quite a few states, they knew these kind of contexts. And so they grew a lot of millets, ragi to koda millet to little millet, pearl millet, many of these things, right? And these were the staple food of the people in that region. They understood that this is probably a dry, arid area, and here access to rain is less. And so let's grow this. This was the kind of knowledge that was there. Unfortunately, this kind of knowledge has not been allowed to be passed on to the next generation, thanks to colonialism at some level and globalization at another level. And many agents who were coming in the form of colonizers or the ones with the globalizing mission, they played a crucial role. For example, the Britishers wanted to mark out certain rice crops as cash crops, and they were leaving tax against those who were growing other things which did not have much of an acceptance in the market. On the other hand, millets are highly nutritious and have so many health benefits, but they did not get the support or the promotion from the colonial masters. And so rice was something that was promoted in a big way. This is one. With the globalization, there is so much of modernization. You find that there is so much of usage of insecticides, pesticides, fertilizers, all that. And all of these things tend to rob the fertility of the soil and make them at some level barren. And apart from that, they also make the soil toxic. Yeah. So when you try to grow cash crops in these regions, and when there is an extended season of drought, then they don't know how to manage. So there is this rupture of knowledge that has been enabled because of these agents that we talked about. And then modern practices that are not suitable for addressing the challenges. These are problems that need to be understood and responded to.
So, sir, when we talk about the usage of pesticides and artificial fertilizers to till the soil, we also have to think about how the insect behavior is. And one thing that I was curious about is it possible that the farmers have been using more and more pesticide for the past few decades because the insect behavior has changed due to various factors? And if so, what could these factors be?
The question that you're asking about the role of insecticides, pesticides and all that. This use of insecticides and pesticides is a very recent phenomenon. When I say recent, if you look at the immensity of time when agriculture has been happening, only in the post-Second World War kind of a context, this usage of insecticides, pesticides through chemicals and all those things have become more of a reality. Until then, we had other ways of addressing these things. For instance, they would have certain kinds of flowering plants that would be grown on the borders of a particular field, and they might attract certain pests. The supposed pest may not go and, let's say, attack paddy or wheat or any millet that is grown over there. There were mechanisms like this that were able to address. So understanding the soil, understanding the weather, understanding the biodiversity in that region, and then making judicious call was a practice amongst many farming communities. Now that knowledge has been lost and there are new players who have come in and they're introducing problematic supposed solutions. And these are one has to deal with. And so in the process of using insecticide and pesticide, it is not just the productivity that might be scaled up quickly for a short period of time, but it can also lead to the limitation of soil's potential itself. So the soil may not be fertile enough to produce more in the long run. This is one problem. The other is the usage of insecticide and pesticide not just has a hazardous impact on the health of the humans, but can also make the soil pick a certain level of toxicity. And this toxic chemicals that have been used in the land might also add to the water, because when the land is watered or when there's a rain, this toxicity would be carried to other places and deposited there as well. This is the other challenge. And it could also be in the air. These are stories that the media has to prioritize and speak about and promote more literacy about the kind of practices that we are having and how this ought to be challenged and changed.
And how can media help the farmers gain the access and the voice or platform that they require to further advocate for sustainable farming practices?
So farmers, can they make some interesting interventions for their own sustenance and for the food production of the country and all that, right? Now, I'm not a farmer, I need to admit that. But from what I have learned from some of my friends in the farming community and also some of the activists in that particular domain and what I've read, this is my response. They can do organic modes of farming and it can yield good results and they need to understand it. But then it's slightly going to be a long-term intervention. So it's not as though you do one and then immediately find a solution. Like for example, Buffalo Back is an organization here in Bangalore on the outskirts and they are doing a fantastic job. And they are able to make agriculture something that can be productive and also financially rewarding, might be a problematic term, but then financially something that yields, let's say. Okay, they may not be able to make major profits, but sustainability of that whole system is possible economically also, right? So that is something that they have showcased. And likewise, there are many other groups. One of them that you are referring to as well is promoting that, right? So there are systems like that. This is one. And then you can also think about short-term kind of interventions. I know in certain parts of Tamil Nadu, they grow greens. Now, these greens can be grown over a short period of time for, let's say, certain kinds of mint or, let's say, curry leaves. Maybe 15 to 20 days, the cycle can be completed, and then you can have another one. And so you can have other ones. So they'll grow a series of greens. So as one is coming up, the next one can be used, the next one can be picked up and all that. And these are ones that are manageable, doable. And you're providing good nutritious food for the people through the greens that you grow. Microgreens are powerhouse of nutrients, right? So that can be grown, right? So likewise, judicious calls have to be made, and millets for that matter. In dry, arid land, instead of trying to plumb great depths and get water and do something like a paddy cultivation, all that does not make sense. Instead, millets, they are climate resilient crop. Even when the access to rain is very limited, they will be able to sustain and they will be able to grow, right? And they will have huge impact on the health as well. So many such choices can be explored, and agriculture could be pursued.
Technology and agricultural, the confluence of the both, creating a sustainable future for the entire world seems like a beautiful idea. And I hope that as time moves forward, we are able to find more and more ways to create awareness as well as to take active changes that can ascertain the future of such important crops such as millets.
And media can play a very important role in such contexts. So millet consciousness is something that media can enable, and also dismiss some of the disinformations that are there surrounding the consumption of millets. Millets have low glycemic index, and so they can be very good for people who are elderly, let's say. They tend to have a lot more nutrition than wheat and rice, perhaps twice. They are rich in proteins. They are rich in minerals. They are rich in holistic growth of people. So they can enable many such things. And apart from that, they are climate resilient. They need very little water. They need hardly 1/10 of the water that wheat or, let's say, paddy requires to grow. Yeah. So in many ways, they are a great choice. And the support of the people can be enabled if media plays its role of a positive catalyst. So it can promote this consciousness and help us have a better India.
Definitely, sir.
And that brings us to the end of this episode on 4C Radio. This episode was edited by Srinivas Aditya, illustrated by Vernika Singh. Student journalist Shinjini Chaturvedi interviewed Dr Padmakumar at Central Campus. Please write to us and follow 4C Radio on Instagram and X. Reach out to us through the official handles of the 4C Media Hub. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep tuning in.